السلام عليكم. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وقال الله تعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل بدعة ضلالة. So I've been continuing with not just the tafsir but some reflections from different stories of the prophets والسلام, from Surah Shu'ara. So today we will talk about a particular incident from the life of Shu'aib والسلام, and we will correlate it with a story from the life of Musa والسلام. In the story of Musa والسلام, mentioned in Surah Al-Qasas, one of the verses that I will read and other parts, we know that he went to Midian after he had accidentally, unintentionally killed a Kipti who was fighting with an Israelite. And then he had to run away and he went to Midian. And there is a story that we will be discussing. In that story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about an old person, Shaykhun Kabir, a very old person, without mentioning the name. At other places, the Quran does mention that Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam was sent to the people of Madian and Aika. And correlating the two, thank you, Jazakallah. Correlating the two, many Mufassirin have mentioned that it was actually Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam who was the Shaykhun Kabir, the old gentleman that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam served for either 8 or 10 years and married one of his daughters. It is also mentioned that Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam was the grandson of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam from his third wife. And this is not mentioned in the Quran, but it is from biblical traditions that her name was Qatura and her progeny was called Bani Qatura. And he was the grandson of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Allah knows best. Now Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam was sent, as I mentioned, to the people of Madian and also to Aika. And there is an interesting twist in the verses that I'm going to read. So let's start with this thing. كذب أصحاب الأيكة المرسلين. Many of the stories in this surah begin the same way, that the people of a particular prophet denied and discredited the messengers were sent to them. So did the people of Aika, and we'll talk about what's the meaning of the word Aika. إِذْ قَالَ لَهُمْ شُعَيْبٌ أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ When Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam told them, why don't you have fear of Allah, or why don't you be conscious to Allah? I mean, all of those stories that I mentioned start with Kazabat, إِذْ قَالَ لَهُمْ, and then إِنِّي لَكُمْ رَسُولٌ أَمِينٌ فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونِ وَمَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ إِنْ أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَى رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. These verses are very common. That the prophets came to them, they all told them that they were trustworthy, reliable messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their message was to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to obey the prophet, and that they were not asking for any reward from them because their reward was up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a very common thing. But there is one thing which is missing actually here. And it's also missing from the story of Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about him in the context of the people of Madian. If you look at إِذْ قَالَ لَهُمْ شُعَيْبٌ أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the story of Madian, the verse is إِذْ قَالَ لَهُمْ أَخُوهُمْ شُعَيْبٌ أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ, brother, their brother. And in the other story that I mentioned the last couple of times as well, the prophets are described as أخوهم or أخاهم, their brother. So why is this word, their brother, missing here? And this is something important from the point of view of being critical of Quran. Some people are critical that Quran contains mistakes and all that. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had put the word akhuhum, their brother, it would have been a discrepancy. Or that could have been resolved, but it could have been a discrepancy. And the way the scholars have explained it, that Shuaib alayhi salatu wasalam was sent as a prophet to two different communities, which were close to each other. Madian, the plural is Madain, which means city. So the community of Madian was an urban society to which Shuaib alayhi salatu wasalam was sent. Now, Ashabul Aika, people of Aika or community of Aika, the literal meaning of the word Aika given in different tafasir is wooded area, forest, thickest. So basically, Aika was further away from Madian. It was like a rural community where there were a lot of forest and land and so forth, farmland. So because Shuaib alayhi salatu wasalam was from the community of Madian, in that part of the story, he is described as akhuhum. And when it comes to Aika, he's not described as akhuhum. If a human being was writing, he may have said the same, Isqala lahum akhuhum Shuaib, talking about Aika, and that would have been a problem. But alhamdulillah, this is written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not by human being. So now, what was the problem that he wanted to address? What was the major evil in their society? And this is where the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, when he first lands in Madian and other places comes, which I will correlate. So his message to them was first, Awkul kala bala takunu min al-mukhsirun. So he has already invited them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obey Allah, obey the Prophet. And then the major evil that he's addressing in that society. And as I mentioned previously as well, prophets are not just message bearers, they are also social reformers. They stand up. When they see something wrong in their community, they speak up, they highlight it, they give advice. So here the scholar mentioned that fraud in business transaction could have originated from the people of Aika. If you think that it was a rural society or something, they must be growing vegetables, they must be growing fruits or something. And they may be manufacturing something like clothes or something. So when they deal with people, they will fraud them, they will cheat them. So Cal will be measuring, and next part, wazanu bil qistas al mustaqim. So wazanu will be weighing. So if you buy a piece of cloth in different parts of the world, they will measure it yard by yard. And if you buy fruits or vegetables, they will weigh it. And how were they weighing it? They still do it in many parts of the world. I grew up in Pakistan and I saw it happen all the time. That instead of proper weights, they will have stones. So they are weighing with a scale. On one end, they will put whatever fruit you want to buy, and in the other part of the scale will be a stone. And they will have two stones for supposedly the same weight. So if a big macho man comes, they will use the proper weight. But if a little old frail lady who cannot even see properly, they will use a little bit less. They're using that, and sometimes they will give her a little bit more and say in Urdu, Amma aapko zyada de raha hu, which means aunt, I'm giving a little bit more, although he's cheating her. That still goes on in many societies, and I'm a witness to that, but that was 30 years ago. So his message is that when you are measuring for people, then do not deduct, do not give less. And when you are weighing things, when you're selling things by weighing, bil qistas al mustaqim, straight upright scale. And there is a whole extrapolation of these two verses that I will talk about. Third thing, وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. Do not cheat people out of their property. We'll talk about that. This is the third thing. Fourth thing, وَلَا تَعْصُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. And do not wander around in the land arrogantly and making corruption in the land. So the evils of the society that Shuaib alayhi salatu wasalam was addressing are very much rampant in the society as well. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a model of what should be done in the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. So we'll correlate the two. Now, the geographical location of that Al-Aika, I have taken it from internet. I will not go into the geographical details, but we fortunately in Worcester have a brother, we may have come here, Dr. Yasir Najjar, who has a PhD in geography. He was a dean of the Framingham State. He just retired. He knows a lot about Quran and geography, and perhaps you should consider inviting him here to give a talk, maybe khutbah, maybe just a presentation. Fantastic speaker. So now, let's look at this particular theme of not frauding the people. This is mentioned in the Bible as well, and it is mentioned in a little bit more detail, and it ties with what I told you about having two weights. So look at it, what it is mentioned. So it's in Deuteronomy, which is one of the 5 books of Torah, chapter 25, verses 13 to 16. Do not have 2 differing weights in your bag. 2 weights still being done. One heavy, one light. Exactly as I saw, and many of you may have seen it. Next part is very important, and I kept thinking about it. Do not have 2 differing measures in your house, one large, one small. Now, who does business dealing in their own home? To have 2 different kinds of scale, one large and one little, in your house. Start thinking about it. And I kept thinking about it, and it's how we deal with our children. You know, sometimes we are not fair to all of them. And it especially occurs in certain communities where the sons can do whatever they want to do. They can come late at night, nobody will say anything. The girl is not allowed to go out. The boy can marry whoever he wants to marry. The girl is not allowed. The boy goes to college. The girl after 10th grade is married. You cannot study. Or in societies where there is more than one matrimony, more than one wife, unequal dealing. Even in large families where many brothers are living together, this can happen. That one brother is earning more, the other is earning less, his wife and children suffer. And I have seen that happen. So even in your home, the first you can use it, that it is when you are dealing with people outside of your home. That when you are dealing with business transactions, do not use 2 different measures, one large, one heavy, one light. And when you are dealing with your own family, be just, be equal. And again, it depends. You know, if one of your sons wants to do something and he needs more help, you do that. If the other doesn't want to go in that field, you still support him. But again, you have to be fair. Justice, fairness, equality are different terms. So we have to understand that. Second, you must have accurate and honest weights and measures, kale and wazn, so that you may live long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. Which means you will continue to be prosperous if your mutual dealings are based upon justice. When that does not happen, when the rich and powerful are treated differently than the poor, then Allah's wrath will come upon you. As Allah mentioned, for your Lord, your God, detests anyone who does these things, anyone who deals dishonestly. So this theme is in the teachings of Shuaib alayhi salatu wasalam, in the teachings of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and in the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, do not deprive people of what is rightfully theirs. How can we explain that? It's not that I like this brother's shirt, so I will go and use my power and take it away from him. None of you would allow me to do that, but in certain societies it can be allowed. But if you look at it differently, you can come up with different explanations, and what I'm telling you is not mutually exclusive, you can have your own take. That depriving people of what is rightfully theirs by not giving them what is theirs by force. Somebody deserves something, you don't give it to them, or you give less than what he deserves. By intentional wrong judicial judgment at the level of the court. The court gives a decision, legal but not moral. By passing unjust laws. One example, if you have a child, you are responsible for all the expenses, otherwise you will be taken to the court, you can be put into jail. But if your father is hungry and shivering on a December, cold night, he knocks at your door and says, son, I'm hungry, give me something. He said, no, I don't owe you any responsibility. The court will not do anything to you. Legality and morality are two different things. Islam's focus is not just legality, it's more so on morality. What is moral, what is just, what is unjust, and not what is written in the constitution of a particular land. Human beings make laws to serve them. Every government does it. Every president appoints the judges that he wants. And then you can have the decision in your own favor. And this was a debate going on NPR that the way President Trump is being treated by the justice system after they confiscated 11,000 pages of secret documents, whatever they call classified documents, if it was somebody else, he will not be treated the same way. This is depriving the people of their rights. Taking people's property wrongfully through forged documents. If you're old and you can't read, do not sign anything on the dotted line. Even if your own children come and say, Mom, sign this document, don't sign it until you know what it is. You know, I can't remember when I first joined a company more than 20 years ago, they gave me a contract. Who can read that contract? Someone actually who was a friend of mine told me, no, do not sign it. Take it to a lawyer. It's better to pay the fee and have the lawyer look at all the little fine print, otherwise you will be in trouble. I paid $750 to have a lawyer look at it, and I'm glad that I did it. Because once you have signed it without reading, if something happens, who you signed it? It was your responsibility to read it. So be careful when you sign anything. And violating the trust of the people when you are elected by people. That's also taking away the right of the people through unfair means. And it happens. And do not behave wickedly upon the earth, working corruption. Examples, highway robbery, piracy, raiding, destruction of the crops, investment. You give your money to somebody to invest, you don't know what happens, unless you are watching everything. In the next part of the khutbah, I'll talk about what Musa ﷺ did and how do you correlate these two stories. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولذكر الله أكبر. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Before I take you to the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, let me talk to you about two ways in which people's rights are taken away or they are not given their due right. One is gender discrimination, and the second is racial discrimination. And 2 weeks ago, as I was driving to give khutbah, I heard two things actually. One was, it happened somewhere in Chicago, where white police officers, it's not a racist comment, but this is what it is. White police officers knock at the door of a black person at 2 a.m. They barge into his door, he's sleeping in his bed, they shoot him, kill him, and the police officer is heard saying, get out of your bed, get out of your bed. You already shot this guy dead without even asking or anything. And I'm not going to say anything, but whoever was reporting on the radio said it could not have been if it was other way around. And you can understand what it means. The second news item was about gender discrimination, that even in today's day and age, and this news was about high-ranking technology CEO women. They are underpaid compared with the male counterparts. And if they both make the same mistake, man's mistake will be brushed under the carpet, a woman has to pay for it. And this kind of discrimination, I myself faced it. I will not mention the country, some people may feel upset, but more than 30 years ago, I got an offer to work in another country as an oncologist, and they were going to pay me 16,000, not the currency, whatever currency, per month. So when I go there, they said, we'll pay you 12,000, not 16,000, although I was hired for that. And then I ran into one of a Pakistani senior colleague and he said, you know, I had a British qualification, but my passport was Pakistani. He said, with the same qualification and experience, if you had a British or American passport, the salary is 28,000. Okay, and this was a Muslim country, by the way. So he asked me to leave and I left the very next day. Alhamdulillah, and I came here. It still happens. So now let's look at an incident from the life of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, because it happened supposedly with Shuaib alayhi salatu wasalam, that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, as I mentioned, had just accidentally punched someone who died. And then he had to run, flee. One person, he's not even a prophet at that time. So وَلَمَّا وَرَدَ مَاءَ مَدْيَنَ, when he reaches the water of Madian, the Quran's language is, the word ma poetically refers to the source of water. So it means a well or watering place. وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ, he found there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have said, وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِمْ النَّاسِ, he found there people over there. But Allah wants you to visualize. أُمَّةٌ مِّنَ النَّاسِ, what does it mean? Not a few people. A large number of people. Ummah is a large number of people. Just to give you the idea of the ratio and proportion. One man against ummatun minan nas. Not a couple of people, not 10 people. So what did you see? Yasquna. They were watering their animals. وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِ امْرَأَتَيْنِ تَذُودَانِ, and he found two women who were away trying to control their animals, who were also thirsty. All animals were equally thirsty. It's now the animals who are being discriminated because the people who brought them for watering were women. Gender discrimination. So what does he do? He doesn't jump into the people. He tries to assess the situation. So he goes to the women. قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا, what's the matter with you? So first thing, always investigate. Don't rush into anything. Even if you think which is visibly discriminatory, try to confirm and find out what's the problem. So he asked them first. فَقَالَتَ لَا نَسْقِي, they said, we are not allowed to water. حَتَّى يُصْدِرُوا الْعَالِ, until the men have finished watering their animals. But then they say something. وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ. Now the word wa can be, and our father is a very old man. Or wa can also mean, because our father is a very old man. Try to look at it this way. In that society, like many societies, a woman needs protection of a man. Who will protect them? They were unmarried, first of all. They had no brother. The story, Allah wants you to reflect upon it. They had a father who could have come, but the father is Sheikh and Kabir both. He's not just old, he's very old. So old that probably he cannot even get out of his home. So there is no way they have any protection. So they are giving him a reason, not just that because it's the custom. Men have water, then we will go. They tell him something they could not tell anybody else. But he's that strange that he's come from outside. And he has the courtesy to approach them and say, what's happening here? Why are you here? It takes one person to realize what's going on. And then people can open up. And many doctors would recognize that when you're talking to a patient, sometimes patients open up. Something that nobody ever asked them, and now they are saying for the first time, like, do you feel safe at home? And woman may have never mentioned it, but now she's thinking, maybe I need to talk to this doctor. He seems to care about me. That's why you're asking me this question. So asking is something very important, even among community members. Is there a problem? Why didn't you come to the masjid last week? Our Sahaba used to do that. When you show somebody that you care, they can open up. So now that he is asking them, although he's a stranger, but they realize that this guy has some courtesy in him, some manliness in him. So they tell him, our father is old, we have no protection, that's why we are not allowed to water our animals who are as thirsty as other animals are. So what does Musa alayhi salatu wasalam do? Remember, it's one individual. He just run away. He's hungry, he's thirsty, he has no home, he has no party, he has no weapons. And who is faced upon? Faced against? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this as ummatum minan nas. Not one man. But what does he do? He just takes the animal and goes there. He doesn't talk to them, he doesn't fight with them. He doesn't cross-examine them. He just does what is the right thing to do. He waters the animal. So if you are even one individual, but if you believe in Allah, if you have the right methodology, the right intention, the right purpose, and the right way of doing it, move it into it. Allah will be with you. Now, having done that, what does he do? But this verse does not end. If you look at the different components of this verse, which tell you the whole scene and makes you reflect on everything, not just a mere translation. So having said, he goes and gives them the animal. What would he say? Will you give me something? Will you thank me? The words of Quran, he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Summa tawalla. And the word that is used is, Allah could have said, Summa raja'a, then he returned. If you read the English translation of raja and tawalla, it will be the same. He turned. But what's the difference? Tawalla wala is back. He has turned his back to the women. He doesn't even face them. Ehsan nahi jatana. He doesn't want them to thank him or praise him. He has done the right thing. He kills the animal with his eyes down and he turns his back upon them. So it's not just returning raja'a, it is tawalla. So the words of Quran are extremely important. And what does he do now? He has nobody. He didn't ask them to give him any wages. So then he sits down under the shade of a tree. And he then makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qala rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. This man of courage and power, his personality was such that no one could stand up to him. He is calling himself faqir. Look at the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are all faqir when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the ghani. We need his help. And if he had the courage and nobody could stop him, he could even take away an animal from the girls and cut it and eat it. No. That's the character, that's the prophetic character. So sometimes when we read the stories, we need to correlate, we need to visualize the scene, what is happening, and pay attention to the actual words in Arabic. Because they tell a story, the translation doesn't give you a story. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. I will take a couple of minutes to say something. I think a couple of weeks ago, one brother passed away who used to sit here right in front of me on one of the chairs here. We miss seeing these people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him a place in Jannatul Firdaus. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, the long journey between leaving this world and standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy on the day of judgment, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him his hisab in his right hand and he goes to Jannah with his family. But one thing that I want to say is that life is fleeting, it's very short. Our days are numbered. As far as I'm concerned, most of my life is gone. I don't know what percentage of my life is now left. We can't say about anybody else. Be nice to each other. Don't want to be harsh to someone, and next week you come to find out that that person has left the world and you can't even say sorry to him. Be nice to each other, be kind to each other. Ask each other if they need any help. And this is actually one of the purposes of Jummah prayers, that once a week we all come together to pray in Jama'ah. We make Jama'ah 5 times a day actually, if we are supposed to do that every day. But the Jummah is that you sometimes meet people that you are not going to meet for the next 6 days. So after you finish the Jummah prayers, don't just rush home. I know sometimes we have to run back to our work or our home, but if you have time, just greet the people at least next to you, say Assalamu alaikum, introduce yourself, get to know each other. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله. Make your line straight. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد